We're live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. Welcome to everybody in chambers here to this evening's Development Services Committee meeting, and to those of you live and on the air. First of all, I'd like to read the land acknowledgement. The Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people and ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Ottawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. It continues today as the home for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the historic Métis community in Penetanguishene. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationship with this land, specifically the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, the Chippewa Tri-Council, and the Williams Treaties First Nations. The Huron-Wendat Nation also continues to pay respect and protect their ancestors and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and culture that has thrived for millennia in this territory, and the treaties that bind us together as partners in the spirit of a shared, sustainable, and prosperous future. We are all treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can move forward together towards reconciliation. Thank you. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Moved by Young, seconded by Bard. It is recommended that the agenda for the Development Services Committee meeting held on Wednesday, January 17, 2024 be received and approved.
All in favor? The motion is carried. I'm just going to announce that Councillor Hutchison has to leave at 7 o'clock, so no one should take that departure with any insult. Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none. If there are any, please bring them up if they arise. May we have a motion to approve the draft minutes of the previous Development Services Council meeting?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Shell. It is recommended that the draft minutes of the Development Services Committee meeting held on Wednesday, December 6, 2023 be received and approved as printed and circulated.
Any comments, corrections, amendments on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. So first of all, we'll begin with the public meetings. We do have public meetings and hearings tonight. I'm just going to explain the process, and this will be explained at the beginning of each hearing and meeting. Each application will be considered separately. The staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the application, provide any relevant information, note any correspondence that has been received to date, and advise of any statement received from the applicant or if the applicant intends to make a presentation. After the presentation, any members of the public who have been registered to provide comments or who are in the audience will be given the opportunity to speak to the application being considered. The Deputy Clerk will advise of those who have registered. And finally, staff will confirm if any further correspondence has been received during the public hearing. There'll be a separate statement to be read at the start of each scheduled meeting and hearing. So we begin tonight with item 5A, zoning bylaw amendment application 2023 ZBA-16 and 2023 B18 in parentheses Langman. The applicant is Peter Langman, and the location is 945 Line 12 North. This public meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment 2023 ZBA 16 and the consent application 2023 B18 submitted by Peter Langman on lands municipally known as 945 Line 12 North. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded excuse me, for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee take the matter under consideration. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received on the matter?
Yes, correspondence received from Enbridge Gas dated December 20, 2023, Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, January 4th, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, January 8th, and County of Simcoe Planning Department dated January 10, 2024.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Brent Spagnol, Director of Development Services, who will explain the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment and consent applications and any written statement received from the applicant. And Brent, welcome to the Development Services Committee meeting as Director.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. The applications before Development Services Committee really pertain to two specific applications to facilitate a farm consolidation, whereby a local farmer is looking to consolidate their land holdings or these land holdings with their farming operation. The application is twofold because under the Planning Act and the Township's official plan, there are requirements for a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the farmland to a site-specific zone that would prohibit the development of a residential dwelling on the property. That is to ensure that the lands remain under farm production. The second component of the application really ties to a consent application, and that is the consent to sever the farm dwelling from the farmlands. These lands are designated agricultural and green lands under the township official plan. They are zoned residential and zoned for residential or agricultural uses, and they also have a mineral aggregate 2 zone applied to the property. As noted at the beginning of the presentation, the application for severance would look to sever off the house. The frontage for that parcel would consist of a total frontage of 67 meters or 219 feet by approximate depth of 170 meters or 557 feet with an approximate area of 1.2 hectares. The lands to be retained and continue to be farmed would have an approximate frontage of 364 meters or roughly 1,000 feet, by a depth of approximately 670 meters, and a total area of 35 hectares, which is all in conformance with the official plan and the township zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. This slide just shows an aerial photo of the lands and of the subject property. As committee can see, the lands are being farmed. There are some agricultural buildings that are to be located and maintained on the agricultural piece. And you can also see the residential dwelling, which would be located, I guess, just on the little jog in the property line to the northwest. Next slide, please. This slide shows the zoning for the property, and as committee can see, the predominant zone is agricultural rural. That zone permits a house, and it also permits agricultural uses under the comprehensive zoning bylaw. And you also note, or I also note that there's a portion of the southeastern corner is also picked up as part of that aggregate zoning, but really doesn't have any bearing on these applications before committee. The next slide also shows the township land use schedules. You'll note to committee that the schedule on the left shows the new official plan land use schedule, which was finally approved. I believe it was late 2022 in December. That plan is in full force and effect. The depiction on the right represents the county official plan land use, which demonstrates that the lands are agricultural and green lands, and both land use schedules are fairly closely aligned with respect to designation. Again, those uses allow for agricultural uses and would allow for a surplus farm dwelling severance in this nature, along with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. This slide depicts the lands to be severed as per the dimensions that were referenced earlier in the presentation, and it also shows the lands that are to be retained and rezoned to prohibit the residential uses as was mentioned earlier on in the presentation. The purpose of this slide is really to show that the lands are being consolidated with an ongoing farming operation. One of the criteria that is needed in order to allow for a severance is to demonstrate that this is a consolidation of farmlands to an existing operation. As committee can see, there are a number of parcels to which the lands are to be consolidated or the operation is to be consolidated with, and staff are confident that that this does represent a farm consolidation with an existing operation in the township. These slides are showing that notice has been posted in compliance with the Planning Act in a visible location from the road frontage to which the applications apply. It also provides just a snapshot of what the road frontage looks like from a frontage perspective for the subject lands. Again, more pictures just to demonstrate the lay of the land and just to provide some context for a committee of what the property looks like. This slide shows the dwelling to be severed, along with just the lay of the land and how the property sets up from a building perspective and built form perspective. This slide shows the lands to be retained and rezoned. And as committee can see, those are active farmlands that are being cropped. And as mentioned earlier in the slide, there are some farm buildings that are located on the property, existing farm buildings. Those are all to be retained as part of the agricultural parcel. And lastly, as far as the recommendation goes, the purpose of the public meeting is to receive any comments related to the application. There will be a subsequent recommendation report prepared by staff to bring forward a recommendation to most likely approve the zoning bylaw amendment and the consent applications. However, that is subject to any comments received through this public meeting process. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions that committee or public may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spagnol. I'll now ask the agent, Curtis Shelswell, who is registered to speak to the applications, if he wishes to provide any comments or indicate if he has anything further to be added to the staff presentation. And I see the response is no, for the record. Okay, thank you very much. To the committee, any comments or questions from the committee for staff? Seeing none, seems fairly straightforward, a amendment and a consent. Are there any parties registered to speak to this matter, Madam Deputy Clerk?
No, Mr. Chair, there were no additional registrations received.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing none, quite an active group. So with that, during the process of the hearing, was there any further comment that came in from the public?
No, there are no additional comments received.
Thank you very much. And I guess that's pretty much it. I wish to thank everybody for their participation in this, either through submissions or verbally. And we'll look forward to a further report on this matter in an upcoming committee meeting. Copy of this decision, or a copy of this, will be mailed out to the applicant, agent, and anyone who submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to these two applications. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the first public hearing, item 6A, application 2023A52 Dawson. The applicant is Rosalie Dawson and Shane Pierce. Municipal address is 169 Shoreline Drive. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the minor variance application 2023A52 submitted by Rosalie Dawson and Shane Pierce on lands municipally known as 169 Shoreline Drive. Please be advised that this hearing is being recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the minor variance application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received with regard to this matter?
Yes, correspondence received from Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority dated January 10 and Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division dated January 10, 2024.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Catherine McCarroll, Senior Planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the minor variance application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. Carroll, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. So the subject property is located at 169 Shoreline Drive. The property is zoned shoreline residential and designated shoreline in the township's official plan. The current use of the property is residential. So the applicants are proposing to build a detached accessory building or a garage, and they're also proposing to do an addition to the existing non-complying single detached dwelling. So they are seeking relief from the following sections of the zoning bylaw. So section 5.1.4, maximum height to be increased from 4.5 meters to 4.9 meters. Section 5.1.6, maximum floor area to be increased from 70 square meters to 165.6 square meters. Section 5.16.1b, enlargement, repair, or renovation of a non-complying building. So they are not permitted to increase in usable floor area, but in this case, they're proposing an increase of 37.3 square meters as an addition to the existing non-complying single detached dwelling, which is non-complying because it's located within the required 20-meter setback to the average high water mark. So this is an aerial photo of the property. So you can see the existing dwelling is located right at the water's edge, and the addition will be on the north side of the dwelling. And then in between the dwelling and Shoreline Drive in the middle is where they're proposing their detached accessory building. So this map illustrates the existing zoning of the property, in which case the entire property is zoned shoreline residential. The map on the left-hand side shows that the property is entirely designated shoreline in the township's new official plan. And the map on the right-hand side shows that the property is entirely designated rural in the county's official plan. This is the applicant's site plan. So the dwelling is located at the bottom of the screen, adjacent to Lake Simcoe. The addition is in that gray just to the north of it. And then the proposed detached accessory building is on the right-hand side to the north of the dwelling. These are the applicant's proposed elevation drawings for the detached accessory building. So as you can see, it's proposed to be 2 stories. And these are the applicant's proposed floor plans for the detached accessory building. So the main level is illustrated at the top. It's proposed to have both a garage, and on the right-hand side, there's space for a home office. And the image at the bottom of the screen is the second floor, which is proposed to be used for storage. These are the applicant's elevation drawings for the proposed dwelling addition. So it's going to be located on the north side of the dwelling. These photos show the view looking both northeast and southwest along Shoreline Drive. This photo is a photo of the public notice sign that was posted adjacent to the road. The photo on the left-hand side shows the existing 1-story single detached dwelling. They are proposing to do the addition in front of the dwelling, so that's on the north side of the dwelling. And then the photo on the right-hand side shows the existing dwelling, which is located within that 20-meter setback from the average high water mark of Lake Simcoe. The photo on the left-hand side shows the location of the proposed detached accessory building. You can barely make out, but there are 4 stakes there illustrating the corners. And then the photo on the right-hand side, you can see the green lids for their septic system, which is immediately adjacent to the proposed detached accessory building. And there's actually the line that runs from the septic tank to the septic bed would run right underneath the proposed detached accessory building. So one of the reasons for recommending deferral of the application was to allow the applicants time to prepare a revised site plan that shows either the garage being relocated away from the septic system, or it shows a proposed new septic system. This photo here illustrates the view from Shoreline Drive down towards the dwelling, which you can see in the distance in blue, and the proposed detached accessory building would be behind those trees on the left-hand side. So I recommended deferral of this application for a couple reasons. Number one was to give the applicant time to prepare a revised site plan that illustrates the required setbacks to the septic system. And number two was to give the applicant time to address planning staff's concerns that the proposed 2-story detached accessory building, which is 165.6 square meters, is not secondary and subordinate to the existing 1-story dwelling that's currently 81.3 square meters. But once you factor in the addition, it would be 128.1 square meters. So due to the size of the proposed garage relative to the dwelling, it's my opinion that the variances do not conform to the general purpose or intent of the zoning bylaw. They are not considered appropriate for the desirable development of the lot, and they are not considered to be minor. But I am available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCarroll. And now ask the, the applicant, Rosalie Dawson, who is registered to speak to the application, if she wishes to provide any comments or indicate if she has anything further to be added to the staff presentation. Please come forward, state your name, and proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Rosalie Dawson. And thank you for that introduction and the, I guess, discussions we've had since we've applied. I just wanted to say some of the reasons that we wanted consideration to be made. Actually, we agree with the deferral option, so I think we do want to proceed with that. But just to give a little background, both my husband and I work from home, and our house is pretty small, and so it's got 3 small bedrooms. So we have a bedroom, and we each have a home office. So, and we have no garage, as you saw the messy shed area. So our intention was to have a large enough garage for each of our cars, and then a workshop-y area. And then we could each have an office and like maybe a spare bedroom for guests that come up, since we moved up from, our friends are in the city. But what were some of the other points that I had? Oh, I guess the primary one would be that although I understand that the garage is significantly larger than the house and therefore it doesn't seem secondary, we love our property and we love our house and we love where it's located on the property. We didn't want to take this house down and build a bigger house and attached garage. We thought it would be just wonderful to be able to keep it and use what was already there. And also that just because our house is tiny doesn't mean our garage needs to be tiny. And that's kind of why we need the bigger garage, because we don't have storage. We have 2 closets in the house. Like it's pretty, I'm not complaining, we love it, but we have stuff. So I guess that's the main reason, but we will take into consideration the septic, and once we have someone look at it, if we need to enlarge the septic bed, because from the small research that I've done, we might have enough units to accommodate another bathroom or 2, but we just want to confirm. And if we do, absolutely we'll get a new septic bed and put that on the plan. So I think that was it. Oh, view from the road. Sorry, there was a point about the view from the road. So because our site is sloped, and we've designed the garage such that it's sitting staggered on the site, so from the road you won't really, it won't seem like a 2-story building. It'll look more 1-story, and you'll see the short end of the garage, and it's lower than our house, so neighbors can see straight over. No problem. now I think that was it. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your commentary. Anybody have any questions from the committee for the staff or residents, please? Yes, Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. To Catherine McCarroll, could you go back to the first aerial view of the plot plan? I think it showed there, that one there. It says, as I'm reading, it says proposed single detached dwelling addition. Is that addition attached or not attached?
So through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Councillor Schell. So that's correct. There's two components to this application. So the one component is they're doing an addition to the single detached dwelling. So that's where there's the issue with the non-compliance, because the existing dwelling is non-complying. And then the second component to this variance is the proposed detached accessory building, which is they're requesting the variance for the increase in height and floor area. So there is a total of 3 variances.
Got it, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any further questions for staff or Councillor Young?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms. McCarroll, you mentioned the second floor of the proposed garage is for storage area, and I believe that it's been indicated that's proposed to be a second suite. Which one is it?
So through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Councillor Young. So it's proposed to be used for storage. It's not proposed to be used for a second suite.
If I can just
Do you
follow
have a supplemental?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, please.
Can I speak to Mrs. Sorry,
This
thank you.
is Ms. Dawson.
Ms. Dawson, thank you, Deputy Mayor. You heard it's for storage, what was initially proposed. Is it for storage or is it for a second suite?
It's not, no, it's not for a second suite. It would be workspace and potentially when we have friends come up,
Well, that's,
there's nowhere for that. So it's not a suite. It would be, we don't have a spare bedroom. So
oh, I see, but there's washroom facilities there.
there will be a washroom, yeah.
And a bedroom and,
It's shown as open right now, so we don't, we're not planning on putting like a full suite in there,
but part of the initial planning is for plumbing for a washroom, is
Yep.
that correct?
yes,
Okay,
that's correct.
thank you.
Okay. And I'm not sure if it matters if it's on the first or second floor, if it's part of the garage or part of upstairs. We just want to, okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dawson. Any further questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just one thing you may want to consider, and this is just is I take it the septic's off from that slide that was up there. It's to the right, which would be towards the lake from the garage. That's where the septic is. I take it.
That's the one tank, and then the bed is actually up closer to the road.
Okay. Yeah.
Just if there are any comments from the public, if they could please come to the podium because it won't be recorded and anybody watching online will not be able to hear. Please,
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. Ms. Dawson, please.
So the circles represent the tanks. I can't remember the names of them, but then the line goes up and the bed is actually much closer to the road, but you can see it. Maybe the plan is small, but it is dashed outline the bed and then the filter area.
Okay. Yeah. No, just something you may want to consider when you see about the septic, of whether it has to be moved or is attaching the garage or the accessory building to the house, which would take the challenge you're having with the size, because the size is kind of set and we have to be consistent, throughout with all properties. And I know it's come before where people are being deferred or denied because it's about size of the secondary building or the accessory building. But an option you may want to consider is attaching, which would overcome that issue for you.
Can I ask a question? Okay. Is it ideal that you want to see the secondary building smaller than the first building? Is that the benchmark? Or closer to, or is there a?
Yeah. Ms. McCarroll would be the best to answer that question.
So through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Mayor Greenlaw. So we need to be able to see that it's secondary and subordinate to the primary dwelling. So in some cases, we see some that are the same size, but you can clearly see that it's a garage. There's no windows. It's just 2 garage doors. So it's clearly secondary in both appearance and use. So we just need to be able to demonstrate that it's not going to be 2 dwellings on the property, that it's clearly this is the main primary dwelling and then this is the detached accessory building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any supplementals? No?
No, I'm fine.
Thank you very
sir.
much. Any further questions or comments from committee members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Dawson, for your presentation. Is there anybody, Madam Deputy Clerk, anybody registered to speak to this matter?
No, there were no additional registrations received.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else come here tonight in order to speak to this? Seeing no one in the chambers. Are there any further commentary received, Ms. McCarroll, on this matter?
No additional comments were received.
Thank you very much. So with that, may we have the draft motion, please, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Hutchison. It is recommended, 1, that DS 2024-008, Catherine McCarroll, Senior Planner, minor variance application 2023-A52, Rosalie Dawson and Shane Pierce, 169 Shoreline Drive, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023-A52, specifically for permission to build a detached accessory building, garage, with an increase in height of 4.9 meters, 16.0 feet, and an increase in floor area of 165.6 square meters, 1,783.0 square feet, and build a 37.3 square meters, 401.3 square feet addition to the existing non-complying single detached dwelling located within the required 20.0 meters, 65.6 feet setback from the average high watermark of Lake Simcoe on lands municipally known as 169 Shoreline Drive, Township of Oro-Medonte, be deferred to provide the applicants the opportunity to address planning and building staff's comments. 3, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Well read. Are there any questions or comments with regard to the draft motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? So the motion is carried. So this completes this application or hearing process or deferral process and closes the hearing. Our committee wishes to thank all those in attendance, either by Zoom or here. And a copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to this application. So thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item 6B. Application 2023A54, Morena. The applicant is Stefan and Miroslava Morena, 77 Shoreline Drive. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provision of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the minor variance application 2023A54, submitted by Stefan and Miroslava Morena on lands publicly known as 77 Shoreline Drive. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the minor variance application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received with regard to this matter?
Correspondence has been received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Department, January 3rd, Hiawatha First Nation, dated January 3rd, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, dated January 9, and Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division, dated January 16, 2024.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll now turn the meeting again over to Ms. Catherine McCarroll, Senior Planner, who will explain the purpose and effect of the minor variance application and any written statement received from the applicant. Ms. McCarroll, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. So the subject property is located at 77 Shoreline Drive. The property is zoned shoreline residential and designated shoreline in the township's official plan, and the current use of the property is residential. The applicants are proposing to build a detached accessory building, or a garage, and they're seeking relief from sections 5.1.4 maximum height to be increased from 4.5 meters to 7 meters, and section 5.1.6 maximum floor area to be increased from 70 square meters to 198.4 square meters. This is an aerial photo of the property. So you can see there's a long driveway down from Shoreline Drive, and the existing dwelling is located immediately adjacent to Lake Simcoe. This map illustrates the existing zoning of the property, which you can see the entire property is zoned shoreline residential. The map on the left-hand side shows that the entire property is designated shoreline in the township's new official plan. And the map on the right-hand side shows that the entire property is designated rural in the County of Simcoe's land use schedule. So this is the applicant's site plan. So you can see the existing dwelling, which is located adjacent to Lake Simcoe. The proposed detached accessory building is located halfway between the dwelling and Shoreline Drive. They are proposing to do an extension of the existing driveway to access the detached accessory building. And there is a covered patio that's on the south side overlooking Lake Simcoe. So these are the applicant's elevation drawings, which show the 4 sides. So the third image down shows the side that would be overlooking Lake Simcoe, which shows full windows across for both the main level and the second floor. So one thing that I will note in a further slide, I'll show photos of the existing dwelling, but it was hard to indicate that it was secondary and subordinate to the dwelling, both in terms of its size and due to its appearance with the large windows. So these are the applicant's floor plans. So the image at the top is the main floor, which is proposed to be used as a garage. And the image at the bottom is the second floor, which is proposed to be used for storage. So these photos show the views looking both northeast and southwest along Shoreline Drive. And this image shows the public notice sign that was posted adjacent to the road. The photo on the left-hand side shows the existing single detached dwelling. And the photo on the right-hand side is one of the existing detached accessory buildings. And these 2 photos just show 2 of the other detached accessory building and detached accessory structure that are on the property. So this image shows the location of the proposed detached accessory building in the middle of the property, which is currently clear. And this photo shows the view of the property when viewed from Shoreline Drive. So you can't actually see the dwelling from the road. You would be able to see the garage, but the dwelling's actually tucked in behind the trees on the left-hand side. So I recommend a deferral of the application to give the applicant the opportunity to address planning comments. So in my opinion, the proposed 2-story garage, which is 198.4 square meters, is not secondary and subordinate, both size and appearance, to the existing 2-story dwelling, which is 181.2 square meters. So due to the size of the proposed garage relative to the dwelling, it's my opinion that the variances do not conform to the general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw. They are not considered appropriate for the desirable development of the lot, and they are not considered minor. So I'm available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCarroll. I would now ask the agent, Orest Stoyanovsky, who is registered to speak to the application, if they wish to provide any comments or indicate if they have anything further to be added to the staff presentation. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Good afternoon, Chairman Committee.
There we are. Thank you very much. I wasn't sure whether you're here or there. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Committee. My name is Orest Stanowski. I'm an agent on this application on behalf of Mr. Marana, Stephen, and Miroslava. Basically, this application is very similar to the previous application in nature, and I would be fine with deferring the application as per staff recommendation to possibly revise our proposal. But in short, I could provide a short presentation as explanation why we are looking for this accessory dwelling to be the size it is actually. Basically, my client is using this property as a cottage, and they are absolutely fine with existing dwelling being smaller in size. If you compare it to the neighborhood, it's a quite small cottage. But basically, they're not looking for any additional living space, a bigger bedroom or living room. They're really looking for the storage. They're short on storage. Typically, they use outdoor space for recreation, and they need some place to store the sea-doos, bikes, a small boat, and a car, if anything. And if you would look at the floor plans, we could see that this is quite modest three-car garage on the ground floor. Once you put two sea-doos and a canoe there, there is barely space for another car, or if you bring more equipment for fun, I would say, to enjoy the cottage. So that's why it looks bigger, maybe on a drawing than the existing house, but that's basically what they need to store somewhere their belongings, since there is no space inside the existing, and they don't really need an extra living space there. They just need storage, in short. That would be my explanation for this proposal. Also, just to mention in terms of the exterior, we did design it to look nice, not just to look like a regular garage, something that the family would enjoy. And also from the street, we were bringing the roof line down. As Catherine mentioned, the two-story component is only facing the lake. So once we see the building from the street, we would see a regular single-story garage, which would be the top image, the first elevation. So that would be pretty much it. Thank you so much, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stoyanovsky. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for staff or the agent? Seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone registered to speak to this matter?
No, there were no additional registrations received.
Thank you very much. And is there anyone here in chambers who's come to speak to this matter? Seeing no one? Oh, excuse me.
3 neighbors that have submitted.
Oh, just one moment. If you wish to speak, come up and speak at the podium here and announce just let us know your name.
Yeah, my name is Justin Bragg. I'm here with Yvonne Bragg, who's a property owner at 89 Shoreline Drive, the property adjacent and downhill to the subject property. I just wanted to confirm, I know that there are 3 neighbors who have submitted letters related to this application. Have those been received, or is there documentation related to that? Okay. We can briefly, or I can briefly summarize, or my mother can briefly summarize points raised in those letters, if that's helpful.
Please go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So we, in particular, are downhill from the subject property, just the way that the grade runs in that area. First observation is that the proposed garage is quite large, ending up being 2,100 square feet with 12-foot ceilings on the ground level. It ends up being taller than your average 2-story home, so it is quite a large volume on the landscape. We end up 2.8 times the gross floor area permitted by the typical zoning regulations, so we're certainly on the large side. There's some of the other concerns that come into play. This large glazed second-story unit certainly seems to lend itself towards becoming a pleasant dwelling space. Looks a bit less like a garage in that regard. So occupancy is a consideration. We're also a little bit concerned in terms of septic. So the proposed location for the building is on the existing septic of the property. Historically, sort of since 2016, many trees have been removed from the subject property, and we appreciate that the owner of the property has planted some new trees, some conifers, to replace some of the ash trees. Those were some of the trees that were taken down in that area. Since the time that trees have been taken down, we've noticed quite an increase in the muckiness of our property, just as there's less ability to absorb water in that area. They're wet sites anyway, and drainage is always a concern in this region. So considering the proposal as a whole, we are concerned that that septic would need to be moved further to the north. It would require further removal of trees and vegetation, and that will continue to impact us downhill. So allowing the building to be oversized has these additional effects on our position. And then just speaking to the septic further as well, just if we accept this glazed second story portion lends itself quite well to being occupied as a suite, accounting for that living space, typically that would not end up being included in any sort of septic calculations. Those would be based only on the fixture units area and number of bedrooms in the main dwelling. So just ensuring that the septic doesn't become overloaded with that additional living space area is also certainly in everyone's best interests adjacent to the lake. These are some of the points that have come to mind.
Thank you very much for your, and sorry, did you announce your name at the beginning?
Yeah, just to be sure that I did. Justin Bragg.
Thank you
my
very
mother
much.
is Yvonne Bragg, and she's present here as well.
Okay, thank you very much to the Braggs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just we're having a technological difficulty at the moment. Someone left their phone here, so we'll just take a break. Thank you very much. We're back live. Was there anyone else who wishes to speak to this matter here? No, seeing no one. Okay, thank you very much. Any further communication received during the course of the hearing, Ms. McCarroll?
No additional comments were received.
Thank you very much. Any further comment or questions from the committee? Councillor Schell, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. Just to ensure you that our departments here take really close look at septic systems and all that stuff. They're going to take care of it.
Great, thank you very much for that assurance. Madam, Mr. Stoyanovsky, or do you have any further comment?
No, not really. To be honest, we're showing it as a storage facility. Basically, there is no livable unit there.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Deputy Clerk, may I have the motion?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Shell. It is recommended, one, that DS 2024-009, Catherine McCarroll, Senior Planner, minor variance application 2023-A54, Miroslava and Stefan Morena, 77 Shoreline Drive, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023-A54, specifically for permission to build a detached accessory building, garage, with an increase in height of 7.0 meters, 23.0 feet, and an increase in floor area of 198.4 square meters, 2,136.0 square feet, on lands municipally known as 77 Shoreline Drive, Township of Oro-Medonte, be deferred to provide the applicants the opportunity to address planning staff's comments. 3, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions regarding the motion from the committee? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? The motion is carried. This completes this application process and closes the meeting. The committee wishes to thank all of those in attendance for your participation. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written or oral comments during the hearing in regard to this application. So with that, we'll move on to item 6C. Application number 2023-A55, Huben. The applicant is Brenda and Gareth Huben, 2024 Line 6 North. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to minor variance application 2023-A55, submitted by Brenda and Gareth Huben on lands municipally known as 2024 Line 6 North. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on this minor variance application. Madam Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence received on this matter?
Yes, correspondence received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Division dated January 2nd, Hiawatha First Nation dated January 3rd, Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division dated January 4th, Township of Oro-Medonte Manager of Development Engineering dated January 8th, and the Huron-Wendat Nation dated January 17, 2024.
Thank you very much. Now turn the meeting over to Brent Spagnell, Director, Development Services, who will explain the purpose and effect of the minor variance application and any written statement received from the applicant. Mr. Spagnell, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. The subject property is currently zoned agricultural and rural in the township zoning bylaw. It's also zoned mineral aggregate resource 2. The official plan designates the property as rural and green lands, and there's currently a residential and agricultural use on the subject property. The purpose and effect of the minor variance application is to allow for the continuation of overflow parking on the subject property for the existing Nordic ski facility. The approvals, I believe, were provided by committee approximately 3 years ago, and the minor variance before this committee looks to extend those approvals for an additional 3 years subject to conditions. The specific variance to the existing zoning is to allow for an associated parking lot in addition to the passive recreational uses on the subject lands. The subject property in the aerial photo really demonstrates that the subject property is located on the east side of line 6. You'll see there's tree cover, there's open fields, primarily consisting of the property characteristics. Again, as noted, the existing zoning is agricultural rural and with an aggregate zoning on it as well. The county official plan designates the property as rural and green lands. The new township official plan designates the property also as rural and green lands. Both of those designations allow for passive recreational uses, and the use of this property is in conformance with those two documents. This slide depicts the overflow parking area to be roughly 6,000 square meters. The footprint of the parking area is consistent with the previous approval from 3 years ago, and is intended to, again, provide for the same purpose for overflow parking on a temporary basis. This slide provides a depiction of the notice that was posted on the subject property. Again, it's clearly visible from the road. The picture in the middle of the slide shows a view looking north along line 6, and then the picture to the far right provides a view looking south along line 6. again, to provide context as to what the property looks like and the road frontage looks like. This slide shows, again, depiction of the entrance into the parking area and the proposed parking area on the right. And again, more pictures for context as to the area where the overflow parking is to be provided. Planning staff are recommending approval of the minor variance subject to specific conditions. The first condition is that hours of operation are limited to between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. And that's related to the maintenance of the parking and clearing area. That no overnight parking is permitted. That the parking lot is to be locked and secured. That parking is to be permitted on a 3-year basis that lapses January 2027. And the recommendation states that the proposed parking lot is substantially in conformity with the dimensions set out in the application. So it's a rough guess as to the limits, but it provides a general footprint for where the parking will be located. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spagnol. I now ask the applicant, Gareth Hubin, who is registered to speak to the application, if he has any comments to provide or indicate anything further to the staff presentation. Mr. Hubin, please.
I'll just ask IT to advance him. I believe he's in the waiting room.
Thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can indeed. Please proceed.
Thank you. So this is Gareth Hubin. Just a bit of background. I did this 3 years ago, where we were looking to get a bit of an auxiliary overflow parking lot. It was approved at that time by council for a 3-year trial basis. My understanding that the 3-year time frame was sort of to make sure there were no issues. So I think 3 years have gone by, and as far as I know, there have been no issues. We essentially use it for overflow parking for hardwood ski and bike on busy weekends in the wintertime. And that's about it. And so just as posted, just looking to extend that use going forward. The only question I have or additional comment is that when I reached out to Derek Whitlib earlier prior to his departure about this extension, he suggested that I reach out for a minor variance, but to make it for a permanent time frame. And so I don't know how this works. It's proposed as 3 years right now, and I just ask if there's any way to make that longer. I don't think it's very controversial, and we're all busy, so I just ask if there's any way it can be more than 3 years, but at the end of the day, we'll do whatever council asks or requires. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them because I know it's a new council, so we spent a lot of time 3 years ago explaining why, but if you have any questions, please fire away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hubin, and please stand by for the questions. Committee members, do you have any questions for staff or Mr. Hubin? Councillor Schell, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I'm not seeing any connection with this property and the physical use of hardwood. It seems to be standing on its own. I don't see a connection to the grounds and the use of the grounds. Like, how do people get from that parking lot to the building? It seems, I don't see cross country. I just don't see an overview of everything.
Thank you very much. Through me to you, Mr. Hubin, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, the trails at Hardwood Ski and Bike proper, without getting into too much context, they go from the main chalet at Hardwood to the subject property. we have trails in those fields that are linked to the trails at Hardwood Ski and Bike. So you can ski from the main chalet at Hardwood right to this parking lot and vice versa. So we have these trails on these fields for many years now. So the trails go right by where the parking lot have, and they've been there prior to the parking lot as well. So the 2024 Line 6 property has trails that are connected and part of the Hardwood Ski and Bike trail system.
Supplementary, Councillor Shell?
Yes, so has this already been operating for 3 years, or is this a new venture?
Mr. Hubin, please.
Yep, no problem. So the parking lot has been operating for 3 years. So we got approval from council approximately 3 years ago to start this auxiliary parking lot. And so it's been operating exactly as proposed right now for 3 years. At that time, it was 3 years was put on it, again, from my understanding, a trial basis to, make sure there was no glaring issues. So we did the 3 years, and as far as I know, there've been no issues, not from my standpoint anyways. And so here we are, we need to extend that use moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, Councillor John Bard.
Thank you, Deputy, through you to, I guess, Mr. Hubin. So this is strictly for the ski season and not the mountain bike season, is it? Or?
Yes, that is correct. The fields are actively farmed in the summer. So it doesn't change the use at all during the summer. It's farmed. And then when the snow comes, we groom the trails through the fields, and we plow a bit of an area for the parking over the last 3 years. So correct, just key weekends to be specific. We don't use it during the week. It's only for weekend use when we're busy, when we need a bit of a buffer.
Thank you. So there's no plans to bring in fill and change the surface of the property, correct?
Correct. No plans for that at all. We want it to remain actively farmed in the summer, and only intend to use it for overflow parking during the ski season.
Thank you very much. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Mr. Hubin, have you had any complaints from the neighbors there? I don't know what is across the road, directly across the road in terms of residences, but just to that as well, has bylaw ever showed up the result of complaints?
So the very first year we had the parking lot, there's one neighbor that the property borders there, the Darby's. And I think there was a couple very minor issues as far as I know at the beginning, and we worked it out together. So as far as I know, from their standpoint, I think everything's going okay. They reached out to me during this application because actually one of the site map originally sent out to the residents was inaccurate, and they reached out to me about it and confirmed that it was going to stay the same. So that was all good. Other than that, I have no knowledge of any interaction with anyone about anything, not bylaw, not neighbors. There's no direct neighbor across the road. There is just the one neighbor whose property sort of abuts the field.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hubin. Thank you very much, Councillor Young and Councillor Bard. Any further questions from the committee? Yes. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to staff, could we just get clarification on Mr. Hubin's question regarding the time length?
Through Deputy Mayor Lavoie to Councillor Clark, the staff's position regarding the duration of time related to the minor variance really ties to the fact that the property is being farmed, during the regular farming season. There are a couple of options for Mr. Hubin if he wants to go through to try to extend on the duration that the parking be provided so that there doesn't have to be ongoing applications every 3 years. Staff would not be in a position to support a permanent use of the lands, because the idea is to keep the lands under production, and a permanent approval to allow parking could result in the removal of those farmlands from production. However, Mr. Hubin does have the opportunity to apply for a temporary use bylaw whereby there can be an agreement that establishes a longer time frame and more specific conditions that can be addressed by way of an agreement. So under the current application, staff are of the opinion that the 3 years is appropriate because it was done through the previous application and previous approvals. Any extensions beyond that, staff are of the opinion that a temporary use bylaw would be required.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bagnall. Thank you for the question. Mr. Mayor, please.
Okay, through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mr. Spagnell. So the recommendation would be is if we're to pass this tonight, it's not feasible to change that motion at this time. I guess the second question is a concern that will come back from the farming community is ongoing parking on land that's being used for agriculture every year. What is the impact on the soil from compression?
Through Deputy Mayor Lavoie to Mayor Greenlaw. It really is within this committee's approval authority to extend the application to which has been applied for by Mr. Hubin. However, what I would suggest is that if there is going to be a longer term, that there would have to be a reissuance of a notice, because the 3-year duration or extending that would extend beyond what the public was notified to. So if this committee was going to consider extending that time frame through an amendment to the resolution or the decision, I would recommend that notice be provided and that be recirculated to surrounding neighbors to get input and comment on that. On the second question with respect to compaction in agricultural lands, I'm not an agronomist, I'm not a farmer by any stretch, so I wouldn't be in a position to comment on that. However, what I can say is that, and I would maybe turn to Mr. Hubin to provide his insights as to whether or not there's been any issues with farming on the property. But I think from the perspective of tilling land and whatnot, farmers tend to know what they can or can't do with that land, and if there was an issue from the farmer who was working the property, I would think that he would mention that to Mr. Hubin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spagnell.
Thank you very much for the answer and the question. I suppose in part too, the land is frozen at that time of year. And Mr. Hubin, do you have any further comment on that matter?
I don't really have anything to add other than, yeah, it's only in the winter time. And so I really can't say, again, I'm not an expert on compaction in farm fields, but I can't see there being any issue, and the farmer has had no issues. The ground all looks the same after the snow melts. And we only use it on the weekends in the winter. So again, my unexpert opinion is I don't believe there's any issues there.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Any further? Oh, sir, yes. Mr. Spagnell, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I just would like to recommend as well, if the committee is considering or looking to consider an extension, I would just like to relay to Mr. Hubin that it would be appropriate if there was a deferral of the application, that Mr. Hubin provide a request in writing as to what type of an extension he's looking for to the duration that's outlined within the existing application.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you, Deputy. When does the current agreement expire, Mr. Hubin? Now, so you know, my viewpoint or recommendation from if it expires now, the circulation is going to leave you with not being able to access or use that land for parking at this point in time. I will support what's before us now as it's articulated in the motion.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to table a motion to extend this? And Mr. Hubin, are you making such a request?
Again, it was from my original communications with Derek Whitlib. That's what he had recommended that I try to do. But at this point, if it's every 3 years, so be it. It's not the end of the world. It's just, you know, it just seems like it could be extended at some point, but I'm quite happy to extend it at this point for another 3 years. Maybe we revisit it one more time in 3 years and see if we can extend it longer at that time.
Yeah, that's probably prudent in the circumstance. And Councillor Young, once again.
Yeah, I'm just throwing this out to you. Are we missing something here that is written consent from the farmer? Here we are agreeing to extend this for another 3 years on his land, on his property, and we have nothing in writing to that extent. We just have nothing against Mr. Hubin here, but don't we need something like that before giving our okay?
Thank you very much for the question. I think, Mr. Hubin, are you the owner of the property?
Correct. It's my mother is on title, and I have her proxy. So yes, we are the owners of the property.
So it's farmed out under contract. Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions from the committee? No, seeing none. Madam Deputy Clerk, anyone registered to speak to this matter?
No, there were no additional registrations received.
Thank you very much. Anyone present who wishes to speak to this matter? We have two parties. So please come up to the rostrum and state your name, please.
My name's Brian Pratt. I live across the road, and the only comment I'd have is that they've always had, since we've been there 2 years, they've always had washrooms, because to get from there to the main buildings is just too far. So this is what they've done, and I think that's a good idea to do that. And I don't think it doesn't hurt the soil, because like the weather today, they've got it cleaned off and the frost will be down 1.5 feet or 2 feet. And it'll be like that until the skiing's finished, and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So that's my comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Was there an intention, Mr. Hubin, to use washrooms at the site?
Yes, once we are open and operational, we get two porta potties put in the lot. So once council, if we're fortunate enough to get approval, then we will, before we open the lot, we put 2 porta potties down in the lot.
Thank you very much. That seems to be to Mr. Pratt's approval. And anyone else who wants to speak to the matter? Oh, yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name into the microphone.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Carl Darby that Mr. Hubin spoke of. I own the adjacent property there. So with Mr. Pratt's question, that was really my question, because in the past, and as Mr. Hubin had commented, there were some minor difficulties, and we worked things out collectively, which solved the problems. And I highly recommend the washrooms being installed, porta potties, whatever they are, and it helps prevent them using our back fence line for relief areas when you're caught short. So that's thank you, Mr. Hubin. It's greatly appreciated. And I think to operate for the 2024 season that we're into, I totally agree with the council here in stating you don't want to delay anything. If you want to keep going for this winter season, make sure it happens. So thank you to all.
Thank you very much, sir. And we're always pleased to see that the neighbors get along and come to agreements on these matters. So thank you to everyone for your cooperation.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else present who wishes to speak to the matter? No, thank you very much. Any communications come in during the process of the hearing, Ms. McCarroll?
No additional comments were received.
Thank you very much. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we have the motion read?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Clark. It is recommended, one, that DS 2024-010, Andy Karaskakis, Manager Planning Services, minor variance application 2023-A55, Brenda Hubin, 2024 Line 6 North, be received and adopted. 2, that minor variance application 2023A55, specifically to permit an accessory parking lot on lands municipally known as 2024 Line 6 North, Township of Oro-Medonte, be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-010. 3, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Secretary-Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions with regard to the motion as it stands? No, seeing none. All those in favor? The motion is carried. This completes the application process and closes the hearing. The committee wishes to thank all of those in attendance for your participation. A copy of the decision will mail to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to the application. With that, we're on to item 6D, application number 2023-B-21, Chapman. The applicant is Dawn Chapman, 6414 Line 3 North. This public hearing is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to obtain public comments with respect to the consent application 2023-B-21 submitted by Dawn Chapman on lands municipally known as 6414 Line 3 North. Please be advised that this hearing is being digitally recorded for the purposes of the creation of a public record. Only after comments are received from the public, township staff, and requested agencies will the Development Services Committee make a decision on the consent application. Madam Deputy Clerk, any communications received on this matter?
Correspondence received from the Township of Oro-Medonte Operations Department dated January 2nd, Enbridge Gas dated January 3rd, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority dated January 4th, Township of Oro-Medonte Building Division dated January 8th, and County of Simcoe Planning Department dated January 17, 2024.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn the meeting over to Brent Spagnol, Director of Development Services, who will explain the purpose and effect of the consent application and any written statement received from the applicant. Mr. Spagnol, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. The subject property is currently zoned agricultural rural under the Township zoning bylaw. There's also a portion of the property that is zoned Environmental Protection EP. The official plan for the township designates the property as agricultural and rural, along with the Greenlands designation. There's a residential use on the property, along with agricultural uses as well. The application before committee this evening looks to sever off an existing residential dwelling that would have a frontage of approximately 43 meters or 141 feet, a lot area of approximately 0.44 hectares or 1 acre, and the use of the property would be primarily residential. It would be a continued residential use because of the dwelling that's located on that piece. The lands to be retained would have approximately 93 meters or 305 feet of frontage, would have approximately a total land area of 29 hectares or 71.6 acres, and would continue to be utilized for residential and agricultural purposes. As committee can see there, the property has some vegetation on it to the west. There are open fields to the east, and it's sitting basically at the corner of Vazzy Road and Line 3 North. You'll notice that under where it says Vazzy Road, there are some residential lots, a strip of residential lots that front on the Vazzy Road on the south side. And the area is primarily agricultural in nature with some scattered residential uses. Again, as noted, the existing zoning is for agricultural and rural. And you can see that there's a swath of environmental protection lands that run through the basically the western half of the property, or to the western portion property limits along, I guess that'd be Line 2 North. From a land use perspective, the agricultural zone permits agricultural uses and it permits residential uses, either as an accessory use or a primary use, depending on the size of the property. The official plan documents that apply for this application are the county official plan and the township official plan. The lands are designated under both official plans as agricultural, rural, and green lands. A specific policy matter to note is that within both documents, the consideration of severances out in agricultural areas are primarily only permitted for consideration where they're tied to a farm consolidation or a surplus farm dwelling severance. The rationale behind those policies is to avoid scattered development, residential development, to protect agricultural operations from incompatible uses, but also to avoid having incompatible uses provided or established in the agricultural area where there could be impacts of odor, dust, things tied to the agricultural industry. This slide shows the site plan for the application. You'll see that the lands to be severed is an irregularly shaped lot. And then you'll see also that the surrounding lands are the lands to be retained with some farm buildings, agricultural buildings, and the existing residential house as well. For context, these slides show, first of all, that the sign was posted as per the Planning Act requirements. It's posted in a clear, visible location. It shows a visual view of looking north along line 3 and also looking south along line 3, and that would be the road frontage. It shows views of the existing dwelling on the retained lands from line 3. And again, this slide shows multiple views at the corner of the intersection along with the road frontages on Vazzy Road. This slide shows the existing dwelling on the lands proposed to be severed. And again, showing how the lands would be situated or what is consisted within the property to be severed or proposed to be severed within this slide. So as far as the recommendation from staff, staff is recommending that the applications be refused or denied. This is on the basis that the application is not consistent with the upper tier planning documents or policy documents, namely the provincial policy statement. The application does not conform with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and it does not conform with the County of Simcoe official plan or the Township of Oro-Medonte's official plan. As noted earlier in the presentation, the rationale behind these policies is essentially to avoid locating incompatible uses in agricultural areas. And on that basis, staff is recommending refusal or denial of the application. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spagnol. Now ask the applicant, Dawn Chapman, who is registered to speak to the application, if she has wishes to provide any comment or anything further to be added to the staff presentation. Ms. Chapman, please.
Hi. My name is Dawn Chapman. I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm very new to all of this. This was my grandparents' place. So that house actually was built for my great-grandparents in the 70s. That was when before Medonte and Oro merged together. My grandfather actually had documents from the township that down the road, if he ever wanted to sever, he had full permission to sever that lot. He had the whole thing done with permits. He had the hydro, he had its own emergency number, he had everything totally segregated. He just chose not to sever it, although he actually paid more taxes having that house built there. Medonte merged with Oro. Somehow those documents got lost. Nobody seems to have them, nor do we. But it's created a lot of problems for us. And in the future, we're actually potentially having to sell our farm now because of all the issues it's created. Banks and lenders will not look at the value of our property based on what its value actually is with that house, a part of it. That house was a modular home based on a full foundation, its own septic bed. It has everything like it's its own entity through and through. But for a bank to look at it to give you a mortgage on that property, they won't touch that house. They look at the house, they look at 5 to 10 acres and one outbuilding. And as far as they're concerned, that house means nothing. So it's really created a lot of problems, private money trying to keep that place going. And for the longest time, I always said I never wanted to sever it because I didn't want to pay more taxes. But it turns out I actually do pay more taxes on that house, and so did my grandfather for all of his years. So I understand the policies. I totally understand all that, except for the difference is nothing's going to change. I need a line, and the line we drew was to kind of find, but that's something I would be totally willing to negotiate and work with as well. Whether it was smaller or larger, it doesn't matter to me. The house sits on a little grass lot, and there's no use there for agriculture, nor will there ever be. So really, we're just looking to get a line drawn around it and pay the township more money every year on taxes. And it makes sense to us. And that way, if we could do that, we could save the farm and kind of create or keep doing what we've created, bringing my grandparents' place back to life and the farmland and the animals and everything. So for us, it's important. I wish I had the documents that my grandfather once had, but we're kind of at a loss. So yes, I understand the policies, but we're not asking for anything to change, just a little line to get drawn around it and probably still stay part of the farm and part of us. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Chapman. To members of the committee, just stand by. You can have a seat in the meantime, it's fine. Any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Schell, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. When I looked at that picture, I saw a separate entity there all by itself. I can't see where it's tied into a farm. It's all on its own. I agree with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schell. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms. Bagnelli, if she's proposing or suggesting a redrawing of a line, if the increase, is there any way that could happen? I mean, to meet the policies, provincial policies and county policies, so they can do it? Go ahead.
Through Deputy Mayor Lavoie to Councillor Young, the policies allow for what's referred to as agricultural severances. Unfortunately, in this predicament here, in this situation, the requirement is that whatever is being severed needs to meet the minimum requirements under the township official plan or zoning bylaw as an agricultural parcel. So unless there's enough lot area available to be able to split the property in half and still comply with the official or conform with the official plan and comply with the bylaw, that would be the test to determine whether or not a severance in this case here could be supported by staff. Staff would need to take that back and take a closer review and maybe work more closely with the Chapmans to determine whether that option is there. I'm pinch hitting for Mr. Karaskakis on this file, so I would have to talk with Mr. Karaskakis about any previous discussions with respect to that option and discussions with the Chapmans. But that is one possible option that might be available, but I can't say whether or not that it can accommodate or provide for a severance in this case at this point.
Oh, supplementals, yes, certainly. Councillor Young.
I guess very accurate. Possibility is there. What I'm saying to you, it's not set in stone yet. Hang on, I think that.
Through Deputy Mayor Lavoie to Councillor Young. So the minimum requirement under the zoning bylaw is 40 hectares of land for an agricultural lot.
Does that exist?
No.
The other question I wanted to ask, if I may, she's indicated that her grandfather had documents indicating way back when type of thing. Would those documents still exist someplace that may somewhat be in their favor?
Through Deputy Mayor Lavoie to Councillor Young. The nature of the documents really in the planning scheme of things and from a policy perspective would have to be reviewed and would have to be considered. planning policy and the Planning Act does not allow the consideration of, say, for example, any wills or any, anything that would allow for the transfer of land through wills or dealing with an estate. So those planning documents would most likely be null and void because the application that's before committee tonight needs to be considered under the existing policy regime that's in place today.
Thank you very much. A question, Mr. Spagnol. Who has the right to appeal any decision with regard to this council's decision?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. The Chapmans definitely would have the right to appeal the decision of the committee. The County of Simcoe could possibly appeal the decision of this committee, and highly unlikely in this situation, but the township under some circumstances would as well. This wouldn't happen if this committee was approving it. But the appeal rights definitely extend to the applicants, as it relates to if committee decides to go with staff's recommendation. If the committee were to decide to approve the application, most likely the appeal could come from the County of Simcoe if they chose to uphold their policies and their official plan.
Yeah, I raised that because I'm sure the mayor is going to bring this up in a moment or two. The county did appeal a decision that this council made in the last term on this type of severance or consent, but I'm wondering whether they lost the right to appeal in the last round of Bill 23, and are there third-party rights to appeal? In which case, I'm not certain that they have the right to appeal. And I think there could be an empathy vote here, so I'm just trying to explore the landscape, so to speak. Just to wait for his answer.
That's a great question, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. At this point, I'd have to, from the legal standpoint, I would have to take a look at that to determine whether or not the county still does have those appeal rights. We do have comments from the county with respect to the application that it doesn't conform with the policies, the upper tier policies. But staff would have to get back to committee members on that for sure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. In the case there's a possibility of a deferral or whatever, while that information might come in. Mr. Mayor, did you want to comment, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. This did come up last term, and an issue like this, and the laws are very, very clear within the policies of the province that you can't break agricultural land into smaller chunks that don't leave them each individual parcel in 100 acres or 40 hectares, whatever math you want to use. So I would caution us going against policy. We have to work with the province, we have to work with the county. And so I would caution that although I do feel for the applicant, and I think that I would suggest I would floor a deferral on this item until we can research it a little deeper. I think we could look at, is there an opportunity for specialty crop growing, in which I believe is a potential alternative that you could subdivide those lands based on specialty crop, and in order to find a route that doesn't contradict provincial policy. And if you'd like to comment to that, Mr. Spagnol.
Can I just ask for one moment before you respond? Councillor Hutchison?
It's with regret I have to leave the meeting now, and I'm sorry, this is a great discussion, and I won't be able to weigh my vote in on it, but I do have to leave.
Thank you very much. Please, Mr. Spagnol, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I think from staff's perspective, additional conversation and just additional research over possible options to maybe revise the application, may be appropriate to take a look at if there's an avenue that can be taken to try to meet the policies from an area perspective as it relates to specialty crops, as well as to definitely clarify the question of who has the appeal rights. So I think it would be appropriate as far as a deferral goes in this case, just to allow for additional discussion with the applicants to go over possible options. Not guaranteeing that there is an option moving forward, but staff are definitely open to reviewing that option to see if there's a path forward for the applicants.
Thank you very much, sir. Councillor Schell?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do we need to put a motion forward to defer?
Yes, to amend the current motion.
I would like to put that motion forward.
Okay, thank you. So any other comment there, Councillor Young?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Perhaps you can clarify something for me. About 8 years ago, I have a farm, and about 8 years ago, I know policies have changed, and maybe this is what the issue is here. I severed off 2.5 acres, which was the minimum for a hobby farm at that time. Is that still in place where you can sever that, as long as it's agricultural, it remains a hobby farm at 2.5 acres? Can that be done in this at this time?
Through Deputy Mayor Lavoie to Councillor Young, my understanding, just with respect to provincial policy at an upper level, is that the consideration of hobby farm and splitting off smaller parcels for hobby farms is something that the province moved away from in their provincial policies. So again, that would require additional research as to how that relates to to the zoning bylaw and the new official plan. The one thing that I would note, though, is that with respect to this property here, we're talking roughly 29 hectares of land. So the ability to work within whatever the minimum land requirements are within the zoning bylaw and the official plan might be limited, especially given that when dealing at the upper levels, so the provincial policy levels, the minimum requirements that are listed is actually 40 hectares of land for agricultural properties. So this is a top-down approach, and these requirements are making it very restrictive to sever off lots out in the agricultural area, and that is coming from the province through the provincial policy statement and through the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe as well, and those policies are mirrored in the county official plan and the township's official plan. But again, it doesn't hurt to take a second look to see what options are available, and definitely provide some clarification to the committee as to what options were considered in order to inform the committee's the decision making.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spagnell. Any further comments from committee? No, and the only other thing I might suggest you might want to try is do a title search, perhaps with a paralegal at the Simcoe County Registry office, in case there are some land title instruments that exist. I don't know if you've done that already, but it's just a comment for you. When properties were in the old land title system, oftentimes there were documents that people have forgotten about, and you might get lucky on that. So anyhow, yes, Councillor Young.
Yeah, just further to your comment there, Deputy Mayor, the land office is in Barrie there, and I've been there and done that, gone back to the 1800s, 1880s, so progressively you can see what has happened to the property. So you may, as the Deputy Mayor suggests, get lucky there, and perhaps there's some documentation there, although I've heard the gentleman there speak to that.
Okay, so with that, I think if we might get an amendment to this motion, Madam Deputy Clerk. And also, while just ahead of that, do I have a seconder for Mr. Schell's motion? Councillor Young will second the motion. The smart end of the table over there.
I'm sorry, I was just in the middle. So the mover would be Councillor Schell, and seconder is?
Councillor Young.
Thank you. Did you want to check with the public or if there was any additional?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
I haven't quite completed my duties, have I? Are there any other persons present here who wish to provide comment to this application? Seeing none. Were there any further communications that came in from the public during the course of the hearing?
And no additional comments were received.
Thank you very much.
Moved by Shell, seconded by Young. It is recommended that consent application 2023-B21 Don Chapman, 6414 Line 3 North and 5253 Vasey Road be deferred to allow the opportunity for the applicant to discuss additional options available with township staff with respect to the application and report back.
Thank you very much. Any comments on the draft motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. This completes the application process and closes this hearing. Committee wishes to thank all those in attendance for your participation. And thank you very much for your commentary. A copy of the decision will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and anyone who has submitted written comments or provided oral comments during the hearing in regard to the application. With that, that closes off this evening's hearings and meetings. And we'll move on to item 7 in the agenda, which is the reports of municipal officers. Item 7A. May we have a motion for the item 7A, please?
Moved by Greenlaw, seconded by Clark. It is recommended, 1, that DS 2024-006, Danielle Waters, Planner, rezoning bylaw amendment application 2023 ZBA 13, Heidi Mirovich, 2 Ward Avenue, be received and adopted. 2, that zoning bylaw amendment application 2023 ZBA 13 with respect to lands located at 2 Ward Avenue be approved to rezone lands from shoreline residential SR zone to shoreline residential exception 353 SR 353 zone for the purpose of changing the use of an existing detached accessory building into a sleeping cabin bunkie. 3, that the appropriate staff bring forth the bylaw for council consideration, and 4, that the applicant be advised of the committee's decision under the Director of Development Services signature.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion is carried. May we have a motion for the item 7B, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Greenlaw. It is recommended, 1, that DS 2024-001, Danielle Waters, Planner, re-temporary trailer agreement 880 Warminster Side Road, Michael Mills, be received and adopted. 2, that committee authorize the request of Michael Mills to temporarily reside to a maximum of 24 months from the passing of the bylaw 2024-001 in a trailer on the property at 880 Warminster Side Road, and the trailer is to be removed after the completion of the dwelling. 3, that the appropriate bylaw authorizing the temporary agreement be brought forward for council's consideration. 4, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Director of Development Services signature.
Thank you very much. The floor is open. Any comments or questions with regard to this motion? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Item 7C, having to do with a minor variance at 2249 Lakeshore Road East. I understand that there's recent correspondence that has been received. Ms. McCarroll, would you provide an update?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I'm not too sure if you're referring to recent correspondence from neighbors on this one, but the latest was that the applicant requested deferral of the application following discussions with planning staff.
Okay, thank you very much. May we have a motion on this item, please?
Moved by Greenlaw, seconded by Bard. It is recommended that minor variance application 2023-A33 David Dominguez 2249 Lakeshore Road East be deferred at the request of the applicant.
Thank you very much. Any questions with regard to this motion? Seeing none, all in favor? The motion is carried. May we have a motion for item 7D, please?
Moved by Greenlaw, seconded by Clark. It is recommended, one, that DS 2024-012, Michael Barton, Township Planning Consultant, rezoning bylaw amendment application 2023 ZBA 09, Wes Reynolds, 72 Line 9 North, be received and adopted. Two, that zoning bylaw amendment application 2023 ZBA 09 for 72 Line 9 North that would amend zoning bylaw number 9795 as amended by rezoning a portion of the subject lands from the agricultural rural ARU zone to the agricultural rural exception 351 ARU 351 zone to permit an on-farm diversified use to occupy a 1.3 hectare, 3.2 acre portion of the subject land, including an existing 900.0 square meter, 9,688.0 square feet detached building, be approved. Three, that the appropriate staff bring forth the bylaw for council's consideration. Four, that the applicant be advised of committee's decision under the Director of Development Services signature.
Thank you very much. Any comments on the proposed motion? Seeing none. All in favor? The motion is carried. Oh. There's a wave going through the... Yeah. Good. We have a happy resident. Okay, so item 7E. Madam Deputy Clerk, will you have the motion, please?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Greenlaw. It is recommended, one, that DS 2024-014, Michael Barton, Township Planning Consultant, re-minor variance application 2022A09, Yulin Meng 1021 Lakeshore Road East be received and adopted. Two, that minor variance application 2022A09, specifically for permission to build a boathouse 0.33 meters from the easterly interior side yard of the subject property, 2.0 meters required, be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in DS 2024-014. Three, that the appropriate zoning certificate, engineered lot grading plan, and building permit be obtained from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding as provided for within the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13. Four, that the applicant be advised of the committee's decision under the Secretary Treasurer's signature.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on this particular motion? Yes, this is the... Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I guess the question I have is, the boathouse that they're asking for the permission for is built. Is that correct, Mr. Spagnol? So I guess this came before us before, and I want to get clarity. Was this structure built and then they came with all the applications for the setbacks, or I just want to be clear on this because it's the second boathouse on this property, correct?
Deputy Mayor Lavoie, through you to Mayor Greenlaw, we do have Mr. Barton on the call, who was the planner who wrote the file or wrote the report. I'd be happy to assist Mr. Barton upon his response with your indulgence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Barton, there you are. We can hear you loud and clear. Please proceed.
Great. Yes, so just to confirm, Mr. Mayor, this is a second boathouse on the property. It is constructed. The owner made this application at the time they were making modifications to the existing boathouse. And at that time, they identified the need for the variance to the 0.33 meter side yard setback. So we had brought it forward, and there were concerns raised about the use of the building. There were some concerns about whether it was being used for commercial purposes and whether there was human habitation purposes as well. So that's what we went back. That was the point of the deferral. We went back and we have added conditions to the approval. that this will be strictly a boathouse, no human habitation, and no commercial use. So that is what has led us to bring this back before you tonight.
Okay, so that building always existed with the cement block walls in place?
Yes, when the application was brought in, that structure was there already.
No, okay, no, my apologies. I'm going to back up a little more. Was the block walls there, and when were they erected would maybe be the better question.
I'm not sure the timing of when they were erected. I'm not sure if other staff, what I'm aware of is that the original structure was there at the time, and the applicant was looking to make some enhancements to the existing structure, and that was when this application was submitted. But I'm not sure of when the original structure was constructed.
Okay. Because I'm trying to find a 0.33 meter setback versus a 2 to a property line seems to be very very limited. I'm not saying, I'm just trying to figure out when that was structured because it would have to be on file when that building was built for council or the Development Service Committee of the day to approve that setback. Is there any records of that, Mr. Spagnell?
Through Deputy Mayor Lavoie to Mayor Greenlaw, I'm not aware of any records in that respect. Again, I think it's one of those things from historical view. The application identifies that the building was located on the property, and staff are going from what was provided as part of the application process. So I do not have that information available to me right now.
So there's no GIS mapping, historical mapping that shows?
Ms. McCarroll is having an epiphany on this. Please proceed.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I was just looking at the aerial imagery, and there was nothing back in 2002, and then there appears to be something in 2008, but it's hard to tell if it's a boat. It looks more like a boat. And then it's definitely a structure in 2012.
Yeah, that was certainly my observation as well. When was the matter previously before council? Do you have an indication of that? Was it this?
Yes, so I'll just look at the date here. It was a 2022 file.
Oh, okay.
And let me just confirm the date.
Here's Ms. McCarroll again, please.
So it was April 6, 2022.
Thank you.
Okay, so I presume it appears that this is not a legal, non-conforming structure adjacent. Thank you very much. Structure adjacent to the property line, so it does raise the issue as to whether or not, I presume the variance is being applied for because of what reason? It must have been on record for the previous time it was before council in 2022. There had to be some reason for the application.
I think at the time the work was being completed on the building, it was identified as the existing condition may not have an appropriate side yard setback, and at that time it was flagged that a variance would be required for that to be a legal situation.
And so that variance was not approved at that time, and it came back here again almost 2 years later.
Correct. It was deferred. So the reason why at this point I'm recommending an approval is that the variance relates only to an extension of that existing side yard setback of 0.33. So the structure that Mr. McCarroll has noted was there in 2012 would have had the 0.33 meter setback. And so by having these conditions related to the use of this structure for anything other than a boathouse, it would control how the use is. But however, strictly from the perspective of whether that side yard setback is problematic, in just reviewing the fact that it is a structure, and again, I'm not knowing exactly the history of how it was constructed. In my opinion, is that the variance itself meets the tests. There could be some concern about the process that led up to it, the original structure being constructed, but I'm not quite sure of the history of that.
Yeah, because it appears as though the structure went up after the requirements of interior yard setbacks took place in 1997. So, yeah, is there a building permit issued for this building? Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Deputy. My concern is this. Has there ever been a building permit issued for this building? And if there isn't, Ms. McCarroll?
To you, or through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mayor Greenlaw. I just took a look under permits, and there was no permit issued for that structure originally.
Yeah, so it's challenging to pass something that's never had a building permit to begin with, and now we're asking for a substantial setback from the property line versus what was permitted without beforehand. So I can't pass it as is, but it's up to the sorry, go ahead, Mr. Spagno.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Lavada, to Mayor Greenlaw. So there has been an order to comply that's been issued with respect to the building. To Mr. Barton's comments, that's most likely how this was brought to the attention of planning and why the minor variance was needed to go and address the proposed interior side yard setback. So there is an order to comply, and essentially what would have to happen through a separate process is the property owner would need to obtain a building permit before they can continue any work on the structure. That is a separate process under the building code, and they would be required to that under that order. But through this process, as stated by Mr. Barton, the minor variance is needed to go and try to recognize the setback that's been established there now with this building and the structure being erected in the location.
So what's the outcome if we don't approve this? So we have to approve something that has not followed process to this state, and now they're coming before us to ask for forgiveness and move forward with the setback in place.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Lavada, to Mayor Greenlaw. For Planning Act applications, what is considered primarily from staff's perspective is the 4 tests for a minor variance as it relates to that specific application. The consideration of those 4 tests is fairly focused in that it doesn't consider any actions that were done outside of the established processes. So for example, it's not uncommon for, and unfortunately it's not uncommon for individuals to move forward and go through the process of erecting a building or a structure illegally. And it's at that point when it comes to the attention of the municipality, there's different avenues and processes to try to legalize them on many different fronts. The planning aspect is one of them, and the minor variance application process is the process to deal with it from a planning perspective under the existing zoning official plan. Under Building Code Act, the other mechanism to make sure that it's in compliance with the acts and building code is through the building permit process. My understanding, based on my experience, crossing the two doesn't become a planning consideration when we're speaking about the specific setback that's being applied for. That's from staff's perspective as it relates to the review of the policies and the review of the applications. but typically the way that staff are intended or need to look at it is from the basis as if the building is not there.
If I were to look at the situation as if the building were not there, I would be inclined on a 100-foot lot that already has an existing boathouse not to approve the zoning amendment, or the variance. So I too have some difficulty with the order in which this has occurred. Normally, people pass through certain thresholds in order and don't find themselves at a liability in the case that their application gets denied and they've done something they ought not to have done, perhaps. I mean, I don't know in the first place. So I'm also inclined not to vote in favor of this, or rather to oppose it. I don't know if there's any other comments from the committee on this matter. Councillor Bard.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy.
Two times in one night.
Yeah. Sorry, and this may have already been answered, but just to be maybe more clear. So if this variance was approved and then they got a building permit and they couldn't get a building permit because the building wasn't structurally sound and had to start over, would the variance that we just approved follow through for a new boathouse and kind of giving like that would happen? Okay.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Councillor Bard, yes, that is the case, that the minor variance approval would stand with the property regardless of the type of structure, whether it's this structure or a subsequent structure. That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? I think we've already had the motion read. Oh, sorry, Councillor Young. I missed you there.
Yeah, ultimately, could we order that the second boathouse be removed?
So you were raising the question as to whether or not two boathouses are appropriate?
No, if there wasn't a building permit for the first one and it doesn't comply with setbacks, can we order it be removed? I mean, where is this ultimately going?
Yes, precisely. I don't know the answer to that question. Is there I guess the building department can do that. I don't know. Is the question to the floor here for staff is, can we order the building to be removed?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Councillor Young. If it relates to the order to comply and the building that committee is considering today, the building would have to be constructed to building code. And if it is not, then it would have to be removed. Now, that said, it would have to be up to the applicant to demonstrate that the previous building that was there was legally established under the zoning bylaw. So technically speaking, for the building in question of this application, if the applicant wasn't able to satisfy building code requirements, doesn't get the proposed variance here, technically speaking, the fallback is that the building would have to be removed. And again, that's on the basis that the applicant is not able to demonstrate that there's any legal non-complying, or that the previous building was not grandfathered, prior to them moving forward and trying to re-erect this building or re-erect a building in this location. So it's not as straightforward as just demolishing the building, but the applicant would be required to provide and demonstrate that there was some grandfathered rights there in order to maintain those rights.
Thank you very much. Very good discussion. Yes, Councillor Schell.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I understand that, from reading it, you've approved it. The planning department has approved this to go through, and you've done a lot of research to make that decision. My only question is, has there been any objection from the neighbors or anybody else regarding this application.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie, to Councillor Schell, my understanding is that there have been letters of objection submitted. Those letters have been tied to, I would say, statements that the property and the buildings have been used for short-term rental accommodation and things of that nature. However, I do not think, and it's my understanding, that there haven't been any complaints related to the specific location of the building as it relates to the setback of 0.33 meters.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. So we have an unusual situation here. We have an even number of councillors and a motion before us. Can you identify to me if the vote is tied when this is, what the outcome is, Madam Deputy Clerk?
The motion is lost if there is a tie vote.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, please.
Through you to Mr. Barton, there seems to be there's a situation where we have an even number of members here tonight because one had to depart early. There seems to be some questions that council has significant concerns about this building. Would you be open to having this deferred to a later date?
He's not the agent.
I thought he was just the.
Mr. Barton, you are not the agent. You're the planner of the township, correct?
Okay, no, my apologies.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I think, well, I don't know that the applicant is here. I haven't seen an indication that they are. I think given the time that this has been going on, they probably would rather have it get addressed rather than just refused. That would be my feeling, and maybe the director has different thoughts. But yeah, I think if there was this need to go back and dig into it a little bit more to provide some comfort to the committee, I don't think that the applicant would have concern with that.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barton. I believe Mr. Spagnol has a comment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lavoie. I think, I don't want to be put in a situation, I don't think staff or Mr. Barton should be put in a situation to speak for the applicants regarding a deferral. So I would recommend, being on the side of caution and deferral, and that would allow for further conversation with the applicant to determine how they want to proceed. That would be my recommendation, but it's in committee's hands. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, my apologies. That was my mistake. I was taking Mr. Barton as the agent representative. My apologies.
Thank you. Okay, having said that, I guess, Madam Deputy Clerk, you're drafting an amendment to this motion. Oh, are you? No,
The
'cause there's no-
deferral, a motion for deferral would
Well,
take precedence over the
no.
motion that's on the floor. Is
No, I
that
guess we can't defer it
okay?
because we don't have the applicant here to make that request. Is that correct?
That would be the committee's decision on whether to carry a motion, defeat it, or defer it.
Is there anyone who would like to propose a motion to defer it on behalf of council?
On behalf of the committee.
The committee, excuse me, yes.
I would suggest we defer this. There's too many open questions right now that can't be answered without the applicant here to respond to them properly. So I cannot support it, but I would put a motion on the floor to defer.
May I have a seconder for that? Councillor Schell will second that deferral amendment. Yeah, I'm just going to wait for that. Let me know when you have the motion. prepared.
Thank you. Moved by Greenlaw, seconded by Shell. It is recommended that minor variance application 2022-A09, Yuling Meng, 1021 Lakeshore Road East be deferred to a future meeting to allow for future discussion with the applicant with respect to the application, if that is okay with the mover and seconder.
Is that okay with the mover and seconder? Okay. All in favor? Drum roll, please. Thank you very much. The motion is carried. This application or motion is deferred. And with that, we are pretty much finished the affairs of the evening. The next meeting date is February 7th, 2024. So we'll have a lot of deferred motions to deal with, I think. I have a motion to adjourn, please, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Moved by Clark, seconded by Young. It is recommended that we do now adjourn at 7:41 p.m.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? That seems to be a popular indication. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. It was a well-attended meeting here in present. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Mayor Greenlaw for the council meeting following the Development Services Committee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to call to order the council meeting following the Development Service Committee meeting. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, January 17, 2024 be received and adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest at this time? Seeing none, may we please have a motion to the draft minutes of the previous council meeting, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, December 6, 2023 be received and adopted as printed and circulated.
Any changes? Councillor Bard?
I think Councillor Shell's not on the screen and he's moving or, yeah, so I don't know whether that's...
Oh, my apologies. Thank you.
So maybe he shouldn't be moving or voting.
That'll be changed to seconded by Councillor Young.
Okay. I'll call that vote. All in favor? And that is carried. There was no changes to the draft minutes, right? Correct? Is that, did he, when did you accidentally log out, just so I? Just before that motion. Okay, so that's fine. Then we're on to Madam Clerk to 4B. Is that correct?
Correct.
May we have a motion to approve the recommendations of tonight's DSC meeting, please?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the recommendations of the Development Services Committee meeting held on Wednesday, January 17, 2024 be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. May we please have a motion for the three bylaws, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that bylaw numbers 2024-001, 2024-006, and 2024-007 be read a first, second, and third time passed, being engrossed by the Deputy Clerk, signed and sealed by the Mayor.
Any questions or comments in regards to the bylaws? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. May we please have a motion for the confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-008, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, January 17, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time passed, be engrossed by the Deputy Clerk, signed and sealed by the Mayor.
All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 7:44 p.m.
All in favor? That is carried, and thank you everybody for tonight, and have a great week.